Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Mann, and I'm the program manager with A Time to Heal. And we are excited to have Lauren Robbins back with us. Lauren received her doctorate in occupational therapy from Creighton University and her master's in healthcare operations management from Nebraska Methodist College. Today, Lauren is going to be speaking to us on returning to simple exercise and nutrition after and during cancer. And so thanks again, Lauren, for joining us today.
All right, well, thank you. And I see some familiar faces from last month's talk, so thank you for, I didn't scare you away to come join this one. I'm really excited. This is another area that I'm passionate about, and I will get on my soapbox just a few things right off the top. One of the phrases that I despise the most is no pain, no gain. Get that out of your head, because when your body is experiencing pain, acute pain, it is telling you that something is wrong, something hurts, and we need to back off, modify, or even stop what we're doing. So keep that in mind with that piece as we move along. My philosophy, my take on exercise and nutrition is really baby steps, balance. We will meet you where you are, kind of thing. So be flexible, give yourself grace, as we're all doing on Zoom right now with all of these things. So as Kelly said, I want this to be engaging and interactive. If you have questions, feel free, put them in the chat, take yourself off mute so I can provide really what it is that you all are wanting to know. And so with that, I will, I can't share, Kelly.
Yep, I'll go ahead and give you that function.
Okay, thank you. Well, wait a minute. Okay, awesome, thank you. Let me pull up my slides here, everyone. There's a few steps to doing this. Nope. Nope, that's not what I want. Where is my, hang on one second. Let me get this ready and then I'll share. How about that? We'll do it that way.
Thanks, Lauren.
See, giving ourselves grace with all of this. Okay, something's wrong here.
You guys are making me feel better with the things I struggle with sometimes.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
thanks
No
for that
worries.
normalization of the process.
Well, sometimes we plan for the best and it doesn't work, right?
Right.
And that's okay. There we go. And let me make sure that it fits in our screen. There we go.
Yeah, looks good. Thanks, Lauren.
Everybody see it. Okay.
Okay,
Good.
success.
Exactly. So thank you for that patience as well. All right. So I always like to start off with kind of an introduction to the topic and why it's important. So as of June of 2019, there were more than 16.9 million Americans with a history of cancer that were living and alive and thriving. 5-year survival rates continue to increase across various cancers. Now, this is an interesting statistic. The World Cancer Research Fund estimates around 20% of cancers in the United States are due to combined effects of excess alcohol, physical inactivity, poor nutrition, and excess weight. That's pretty significant. Adults who follow a healthy lifestyle recommendations are 10 to 20% less likely to be diagnosed with cancer and 20 to 30% less likely to die from their cancer. And so these are lifestyle recommendations, including exercise, wellness, nutrition. So the body of evidence and research continues to grow on just how important exercise and nutrition are in not only cancer prevention, but also recurrence. And I have some additional research as we move along in the presentation. Just a little teaser there. So the good news is improved treatments lead to increased remission rates, extended survival, increased or improved quality of life is consistently reported with those who are following those healthy lifestyle recommendations. Patients that are the healthiest tend to have more options of treatment available to them, and they're able to withstand and actually recover better from those treatments. So exercise tends to be one of those magic pills, if you will. It really does. Generally, if you do it in a healthy manner, which we'll talk about, it seems to improve almost anything. So what's the alternative? What if you rest? What if you don't do anything? What about inactivity? So this can lead to decreased endurance, decreased muscle strength, increased efforts to perform your everyday activities. It can lead to increased fatigue, and then the spiral continues downward. If you're not performing your daily activities, if you're not engaging in activity, you continue to feel more tired, feel more weak, et cetera, et cetera. So what about, I hear many cancer survivors say, gosh, I have these side effects. I don't feel so hot. What do I have to be mindful of? So I wanted to include this as well, because cancer and cancer treatments may have many physiological effects on the body. And some of these are short-term effects. And some of these are certainly long-term that may stay with someone long past their cancer and cancer treatment. For example, perhaps bone disease is something to consider. Compression fractures, maybe a pathologic fracture. So that is when the bone is weakened by another condition, and that puts you at risk for a bone break. Sometimes treatments or the cancer itself can lead to hypercalcemia, too much calcium in your blood. And what that does is it leaches the calcium from your bones and it leaks into your blood, again, weakening your bones and making you at risk for fracture. It can also affect our kidneys as well as our brain and heart. Anemia is also a side effect that is fairly common with treatments related to cancer. So with that, we have to consider fatigue, possibly weakness, shortness of breath, depending on how severe that anemia is. And pain is a significant side effect that individuals do report. So again, my earlier statement, no pain, no gain, truly listen to your body when it's trying to tell you something. Additional things to consider, peripheral neuropathy, decreased sensation, numbness, tingling, possible weakness, particularly in our extremities, usually in our feet, our toes, as well as our fingers and hands. So with lower extremities, this can possibly impair balance, making someone a fall risk. Another side effect is GI dysfunction, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or constipation. And along with that, maybe a decreased appetite, maybe some weight loss, feeling weaker. And then lastly, and this is not an exhaustive list by all means, but just another consideration would be swelling. Some treatments put persons at risk for DVTs or blood clots or lymphedema is another consideration that we talked about last month with exercise and activity. So these are all considerations when beginning or returning to exercise and activity following cancer treatment. Some of these may sound familiar to you all. At one point you experienced them or you continue to. So let's move on to exercise during and after cancer.
Hi, Lauren, I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
I just need to change a quick setting. So you might get booted out of screen sharing. But I neglected to think through something when I made you the host for admitting participants. So I'm going to reclaim host and then allow you to chat again. I just want to make sure nobody's in the waiting room.
Oh, I was going to say, I can check that real quick. Go ahead, Kelly, though.
All right. It looks like you can still share your screen and I'm back as the host. So we're good to go. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you. All right. So general exercise recommendations. This is for all adults and not specifically for our cancer survivors. The HHS, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, recommends at least 2.5 hours to 5 hours of exercise at moderate intensity per week. An example would be brisk walking, or 75 minutes to 2.5 hours of vigorous exercise per week, such as running or maybe some higher intensity cardio. The HHS also recommends that adults do some kind of muscle strengthening at least 2 or more days per week. And that can be body weight, bands, dumbbells, etc., for strengthening. So think back to prior to your cancer and treatment. Were you hitting these targets? Were we hitting these targets, these general recommendations? So exercise and cancer, what does the research say? This is an area that has been studied quite a bit. Prior to me, well, maybe in the early bit of my career with being specialized in cancer rehab, we still had physicians telling some survivors to rest, to not engage in exercise, thinking that was the better thing. Well, that has shifted, thankfully, to knowing that exercise is of great benefit for our cancer survivors. In multiple research studies, there's been found to be no difference in mortality between the exercise and the control group. So good thing, research demonstrates exercise won't kill you. So that's a good thing, right? Physical exercise added to the standard of care has been shown to improve quality of life, physical functioning, depression. Moderate exercise has been shown to improve fatigue, anxiety, our overall self-esteem and wellness, cardiovascular health, our heart and blood vessels, muscle strength, as well as our body composition. And that is how much your body is made up of fat, bone, and muscle. I like that one. Body composition seems to make sense in my brain a little bit better than the BMI, for example. Other researchers have found that women who met the minimum federal exercise guidelines of 2.5 hours of moderate exercise per week had before and after being diagnosed with breast cancer, had a 55% lower risk of recurrence compared to women who didn't meet the minimum guidelines. This particular study found that those women who participated in the minimum exercise guidelines had a 68% lower risk of dying compared to women who didn't meet the minimum guidelines. Even women who started exercising only after breast cancer benefited from physical activity. They had a 46% lower risk of recurrence and a 43% lower risk of dying when compared to those women who did not meet the minimum guidelines. Interestingly, the results also found that a few hours of consistent weekly exercise led to the same survival benefits as exercising for longer periods of time each week. So breaking it down to 15-minute exercise periods, if you will, that which added up to 2.5 hours had the same benefit than if you did a couple days a week of longer exercise periods. Okay, now I might be a little biased, but I'm not sure of anything else that I've ever heard of that can have that dramatic of an improvement in our risk for reoccurrence and dying from breast cancer. In this case, it was for breast cancer survivors specific. So the American College of Sports Medicine reviewed thousands of research studies on exercise for cancer prevention, and it has created exercise guidelines for our survivors. So their research showed that exercise is associated with lower risk of developing 7 types of cancer, including colon, breast, kidney, endometrium, bladder, stomach, and esophageal. It's linked to improved survival before and after breast, colorectal, and prostate cancer, reduces risk of recurrence of breast, colon, and prostate cancers by 20 to 40%. And again, that's breast, colon, and prostate combined. And it tends to counteract inactivity and prolonged sitting, both of which we have found may increase the risk of certain cancers, such as endometrial, lung, and colon cancer. You might have heard the new saying that sitting is the new smoking. And so they are finding that exercise is able to counteract some of maybe our office jobs and things like that.
Lauren, we did have a question.
Yes.
On some of those statistics. It says, if you already were exercising adequately before cancer, do you need to increase your exercise amount to get those benefits to decrease recurrence?
No, not necessarily. No, as long as those research was for individuals who were meeting those federal recommendations. So if you were meeting those prior to, then you are receiving the benefits. Does that make sense? So you don't necessarily have to increase it because of that. Now, there are other things we're going to talk about a little bit later that may sway you to increase it. But as far as those research studies go, they were focusing on those that were meeting the federal recommendation guidelines. Great question. So here are the actual recommendations from the American College of Sports Medicine for cancer survivors. They also worked with the American Cancer Society to develop these. So number 1, avoid inactivity. Be active. Whatever you are able to do, be active. 2, engage in aerobic exercise. So that's cardiovascular endurance type exercise at least 3 days a week for a total of 90 minutes with a goal of building up to 150 to 300 minutes during the week. Some examples of those: walking, cycling, swimming, jogging, dancing, doesn't really matter. As long as you're going to do it, it's enjoyable, you're having fun, and it's increasing your heart rate, you're good. And
I appreciate that you said having fun. We had someone in the chat box say that we need to get our, I'm assuming, live bands going so that we can start dancing again.
I completely agree. Live music is one of my things. Yeah. So last year was tough without that live music experience. I completely agree. Dancing is fabulous. Fabulous exercise. Number 3, perform resistance exercise. So this is strengthening, think of it that way, at least 2 days a week. Again, you can use body weight, resistance bands, dumbbells, maybe some of those equipment machines at the gym, if you feel comfortable doing so. And they recommend focusing on large muscle groups, which we'll talk about. They also say increase the resistance or weight slowly over time and perform at least 3 exercises each for upper and lower body strength. So these are the recommendations specific for cancer survivors. So what type of exercise is best? Okay, we know that it helps us. We know that it helps practically every aspect of our life. What can I do? What do I do? The main goal, I like to say, is to stay as active as possible and slowly increase your level of activity over time, especially if you are just getting back to it or if you weren't an exerciser before. People getting chemo and radiation, if you're actively being treated, you may need to do so at a slower intensity and build up more slowly than people who are not in active treatment. And a great place to start is low intensity exercise. A couple examples there include walking, yoga, Tai Chi, or light strengthening, which I'll demonstrate a little later. Okay, so what if you are an individual who says, I am completely exhausted. It takes effort to complete my shower and I'm spent. You know, I've had those individuals, cancer survivors, that are just out from treatment, or if they're doing an ongoing treatment or something. If that's the case, and walking, yoga, Tai Chi, if those activities are too intense for you, then your exercise for the day is taking your shower. That's your exercise, and that's okay. You can sit, you can breathe, you can sit in your chair and do a few arm bends, elbow bends, arm lifts, raise your toes, tap your toes. Well, there's all kinds of modifications that we can do. And remember, again, breaking it down to little chunks, 5-10 minutes at a time, really adds up. Work it into your daily activities, even. For those of you that are consistent exercisers and need a little bit of a challenge, let's move on to the next slide. So what can you do? So we've got strength training. Again, I mentioned low load bed and chair exercises. A low load, that just refers to the amount of weight that someone is lifting. So low load would be a lower weight. Body weight exercises, resistance bands, free weights. There's strength machines if you belong to a gym or if you have a home gym. And aerobic conditioning, rate of perceived exertion. I really like this scale, which I'll pull up here in a minute. 0 to 10 scale. Low intensity to maintain function or prevent deconditioning. 3 to 5 minutes of activity several times a day, 7 days a week, and it really adds up. Try to stay within that RPE, or rate of perceived exertion, between a level of 2 and 3. Here is the RPE scale. You can see 0 would be sleeping. There's no activity until, unless it would be your internal autonomic activities going on. So 1, very light activity. 2 to 3, light activity. Easy to breathe and carry on a conversation. So if you're walking, you are able to carry on a conversation with the person next to you. That's where I like to start people. And then if you need a challenge, you can move up to that 4 to 6, moderate activity. So you're breathing a little bit more heavily. You can hold a short conversation, but you're still comfortable, you're still feeling okay, but it's becoming a little bit more challenging. And this is very individual for each of us, our different levels, and where we start from. 7 to 8 is your vigorous activity. That's when you can only get out a few words while you're doing an activity. Now, think back to some of those days during treatment or shortly thereafter, when taking a shower, when walking to get the mail, and you may have been breathing more heavy. So that was your vigorous activity. It's difficult because it's not where we used to be. We always want to compare and say, oh gosh, I used to be able to do this, and now it's so hard for me to do it. You can get back to those activities that you enjoy. It may take some time. It may take some modification to get there. Give yourself grace, be patient, and you'll get there. And then 9 or 10 are, those CrossFit individuals, things like that. So if you're into that, go for it. Make sure you're slowly building to get there. Don't injure yourself. I'm not knocking those at all, but the majority of us, I would say, are going to be somewhere in that blue, green, and yellow zone. Questions on this scale at all? Does this make sense? Good, okay. I'll take silence as a understanding. I like this visual. It helps me kind of quantify where I am with my exercise exertion and how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm. It sounds wonderful when you can do it. And I'm just wondering, some of us, at least, we're not used to activities and exercising and things. And I think earlier you did say that, low impact things, so go slow. And is it that can we stay there? Or do we need to go up to,
Great question. Great question. On the RPE, it would translate to anywhere from at least a 2 level. So you're able to maintain a conversation, to that 4 to 5 level would be within those federal guideline recommendations and the recommendations for cancer survivors. So as long as you're in that range, you're fine. Now, the activity itself, remember, our bodies are smart. They adapt quickly. We will grow in our endurance and our ability to tolerate activities. We therapists actually call it activity tolerance. So when you start out, sister, when I started exercising, let's say a couple of years ago, I trained for a half marathon. My first day, I ran a mile and I was at a 7 or an 8, right? Because I was breathing heavy. Oh my gosh, whoa, I could barely get the words out. Well, a couple of weeks of that, running 2 miles, I was down to a 2 or a 3 of my rate of perceived exertion. So my body was able to tolerate the activity better because I had developed my endurance for that activity. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? So that it may range, but as long as you are at least a 2, and then you can be as high as you desire. If you want to push yourself and get into that 7 and 8 level of more vigorous activity, that's fine. But I want people to be safely getting there. So you can, one way to track this is take your calendar, and I'm going to walk a mile and write down, whew, I was a 6. I walked that mile, and boy, that was tough. I was breathing heavy. You know, today is May 8th. It was a 6. And I'm going to keep walking maybe 2 days a week, whatever your goal is. And then don't look at it. 3 weeks later, okay, I'm going to write it down. Don't look at it. Say, today, I felt like I was a 3. Well, gosh, okay, all right. My body is acclimating. I'm developing my tolerance for it. So yeah, it's very individual.
I was thinking as long as we can keep moving, you know, and we should be okay, because sometimes, you know, you kind of get tired or fatigued. I don't know, for some reason, you know, and then you just try to exercise. It's kind of effort, you know, great effort, but then, and it just seemed like maybe as long as we can just move and do something, you know, maybe it'll be better than none at all.
You got it. Exactly. Something is better than nothing. Absolutely. I would agree with that. And every person's something is a little bit different, depending on what you brought into it, if you will. What was your health status before? What was your activity level before? And you're exactly right. Fatigue is a huge, huge side effect ongoing for a lot of people after cancer treatment. And we know that research shows not doing anything, resting, only makes it worse. Doing something improves, but it is little by little. Keep track of it, because too, we don't always think we're making progress, but we really are. We really are. So I suggest that method too. Just like fitness competitors take their pictures to show their body physique and things, because we don't always see those changes. Same kind of idea. Write it down.
Lauren?
Great questions. Yes.
I think it's important to note too that sometimes we just have bad days.
Yeah.
You know, that it can be, you can be going along at a 3, and then someday, for whatever reason that we don't understand, it's a 6, and it's important to just look at that as one day.
That's right.
Not think, oh my gosh, now I'm doing worse, and you know, we all get that horrible fear right here that something, you know, but you know, give it a couple days. Maybe you just had a bad day. We still can have bad days, and just persevere and do something.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right, Karen. Well said. There are those days, and the fatigue that comes along with treatment. Think about what is required of our bodies to simply exist. Simply wake up in the morning and exist. Now we've got cancer ravaging our bodies. So your body is fighting that. Then we've got treatments on top of it that are wiping things out. Chemotherapy, I'm looking at you, because it's not discriminate, right? It wipes out everything. So your body is fighting that. Just slow down and think about how much energy our bodies are expending throughout this entire process. I mean, when we sleep, we burn an exuberant amount of calories just breathing, just keeping our brains active, being alive, right? And then we've got all of these other things going on when you're going through treatment. So that it's a tremendous amount of energy. And I don't know if there's ever been research to actually quantify that number, but it's incredible what our bodies are capable of. So yes, absolutely. Might have one of those bad days. It's stressful. You had something going on personally, personal life, work life, whatever it is, the kids, whatever it is. And prior to treatment, maybe you had the energy. Well, now some of that energy has been spent. So we need to build it back up slowly. Yeah, Karen, very good point. And I will keep this slide in the presentation so you all can refer back to that. But that's just one of my personal favorites to kind of keep me on track. So in addition to exercise and strengthening, you might consider other activities or tools to help you out, either temporarily or maybe for longer. So if you are a fall risk, maybe having a cane or a walker is a good idea to help with that balance. Proper sit to stand transferring from your bed, from your chair, from your toilet to help reduce the risk of falling. If you fall, if you get hurt, then it takes a little bit while to recover. So that's the idea with here. Maybe some balance exercises, diaphragmatic breathing, deep belly breathing is a great exercise that we can all do. Even on our bad days, we can breathe. Here's some adaptive equipment or tools maybe, so you don't have to expend so much energy. A reacher, a grabber, long-handled shoe horn, long-handled sponge in the shower, maybe a raised toilet seat, maybe a shower chair so you can sit and take your shower so you're not wasting your energy on those kind of things and you're engaging in other activities that you enjoy. Think of it that way. They are simply tools to keep us independent. So just a few special considerations. Some individuals do experience that severe anemia I mentioned earlier, and you might require some treatment for that. So maybe exercise is not the best idea at that point. Make sure that you are feeling healthy and your labs are within ranges, and talk with your doctor to make sure that that's safe. Maybe those with weak immune systems or immunocompromised, maybe consider not going to a public gym when your white blood cell counts are low. And then lastly, radiation is something to consider. Maybe not head to the swimming pool with a bunch of chlorine because it really could irritate that treatment area. And always, always, always talk to your doctor when you are considering or thinking about starting an exercise program. Another thing to consider before I start doing a little demonstration here is make sure, I'm going to get on my soapbox. If you are someone who has exercise and you feel comfortable and you know what you're doing, that's fine. I'm not talking to you. If you're just starting out, or if you feel differently now from treatment, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Seek a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, maybe, or even an athletic trainer. Talk to your doctor and get a referral for someone that they trust, because these individuals have had the additional skilled education and skilled training to give you a proper and prescribed exercise program. So if you're struggling with that, gosh, where do I start? What do I do? How many days a week? How many reps? Things like that. Consider that as an option. It could be a 1 or 2 visits kind of thing, and you get some ideas on where to start. I have lots of clients that have done that to get them started. They can also monitor your heart rate, your cardiovascular response. If you have numbness and tingling and peripheral neuropathy and things like that, they can monitor you and they can modify things that you wouldn't necessarily get if you were doing it on your own or if you went to a public gym. And again, I'm not taking away from our gym professionals and our certified personal trainers, because there are some excellent ones. They've taken this very seriously now, and they've taken additional courses in oncology to understand what our cancer survivors are living with after their treatments. I get a little leery when someone has taken a weekend course and they want to start you out and they're pushing you, too much. So just keep that in mind. I will put that out there as an idea for that. So what I would like to do now, I'm going to put my hair in a ponytail. I'm getting serious, guys. The hair's going up. Watch out. I will demonstrate a few simple exercises here. And I believe we included the handouts along, so we'll reference those if you'd like. Here is one with some band exercises. And then the other one, I apologize, when I printed it, the formatting wasn't good. So some of the pictures are misaligned. So Kelly, I might have to look at that one before I send it to you, because that one for me at least didn't print very well.
Okay, yeah, we can reconfigure that. And what I'll do is I'll send that out in an updated document when we send our follow-up email.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. So on this exercise sheet, I'm going to use resistance bands. And then I've got a variety of stuff here behind me. I've got dumbbells, resistance bands, and I've got a can of soup. Actually, it's beads.
And we just wanted to make a note that these are just demonstrations. Like Lauren said, consult with your physician and so forth. We just wanted to give examples. So not necessarily to follow through right now, but just something so that you guys can have in your tool belt for moving forward.
You got it. Thank you, Kelly. All right, so resistance bands like so. First exercise, out in front of you, open up your chest and back down. And I want you to do it that slow and controlled. Okay. You can also loop this band around a doorknob, if you will, and pull back. This one I love for my cancer survivors. Even though you had your surgery and treatments in front, your shoulder blade and your entire shoulder is really neglected and it starts to get tight and you're limited in range of motion. So this one is fantastic for that. Again, tie a little loop around it, put it on the doorknob and bring it back. Squeeze those shoulder blades together, pinch them.
I cannot see too. Lauren, I cannot see what you are doing.
So you are holding your bands. I know, Zoom, right? Holding your bands here. Pretend like I have a doorknob. I have it hooked on a doorknob. And I pull back and squeezing my shoulder blades. Pinching my shoulder blades together.
Yeah, pulling.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You got it.
Thank you.
Exactly. Perfect.
Thank you.
Another one with your bands, you can use these on your lower extremities as well. You can hook it around your foot. Let's see, guys, if I can make this work here. Around your foot, see what I got here? And I can do up and down. I don't require you to stand on one leg like I am. You can sit. That's working your calf muscle. That is also making your ankle a little bit more mobile. Very good for balance. This handout that I included has exercises in the larger muscle groups, like we mentioned earlier. And then also it's really focused on functional activities. So think about squeezing your shoulder blades together you have to do that when you open the door, right? You pull the door. And then some of our other exercises for your lower extremity, the balance stuff. One for your shoulders, holding it and lifting straight up. Lifting straight up with your band. If you've got a can, lifting straight up, like so. And then your other side. You can modify these however you need to. Start just against gravity. Make it a little bit harder. You do both at the same time. Good question. I see. How do you know what band to buy? So typically, look on the box. Every brand is a little bit different, but typically the darker the color, the more resistance it is. So green is usually somewhere in the middle. Blue is slightly heavier or slightly more resistant to that one. And then black, or the darkest color, is usually the heaviest. And then the opposite direction, red, orange, and yellow would be the lightest, or the paler color would be the lightest typically. So green is a good one to start. It's right in the middle. If you do it and you're like, oh boy, that's easy, you can also wrap around and that's our doorbell. My daughter might have a friend who wants to play. You can wrap it around and get some more resistance as well. So great question. That's another area where if you want an formal evaluation with a therapist, an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, they could also perform an assessment and tell you that here's what you need too. I've got, lastly, some dumbbells here. If you have it at home, great. You can find these practically anywhere now. Even go to a secondhand store. A lot of people may have gotten rid of their exercise equipment now that they can go back to their gym or something. So you are certainly welcome to get those dumbbells and do quite a bit of exercises with those too. I know that this is a lot and it seems kind of general, but as Kelly said, simply a demonstration just to give you some ideas on different exercises that you can do. Now, the other sheet that I included, no. Right? 21st century parenting right there. The other sheet has a few stretches. So if strengthening is a little too much right now, try stretching. Now I've got my daughter's golf club here. You can use a broom, a pole, a cane, whatever the heck you want, a towel. And you can simply stretch your arms up and try to get that armpit nice and stretched out for our breast cancer survivors. Get that chest nice and stretched out as well. So that's an excellent one for stretches. And I'm a huge fan of that. Even if you feel like your range of motion is pretty darn good, it's a nice warm up. It keeps you limber and it just helps with your everyday activities as well. Okay. No. My daughter is she's grounded from her friends for a week, and so her time comes off at noon and she's trying to finagle a little bit earlier here. Questions on those things right now? Again, I know it's very general and just a demonstration at this point. So if it piques your interest, again, I would recommend sitting down with someone who is specially trained in that too, because yeah, I can't follow up with you, so I don't want to give you a prescription right now. I'm a huge believer in making sure that I can follow up with my folks to make sure that we're doing it safely as well.
Lauren, I have neuropathy in both of my feet, and it seems like it's increasing. It's growing more toward the instep. Would I be looking for, asking my doctor for OT or PT?
Either one. Either one can do that. Yep, either one. And Agnes, you can, a couple exercises to start with are foot and ankle ABCs. So let me show you.
Okay.
Here with my foot here, I'm going to spell out the alphabet, B, C, D, and so on. Capital letters. Cursive is cheating. So, and what I mean it though. What I want you to do is capital letters, because I want you to start and stop and make it controlled. A, B, and so, but if you're doing cursive, it's just kind of loop-de-loop, you know? So slow, controlled, you can do that one real easy, just on your own. Your foot and ankle ABCs, and that starts to get everything moving as well. But yeah, you can ask for an OT or a PT, depending on regionally where you're at. It might be a PT, it might be an OT, but you definitely want someone who knows about cancer rehab. Peripheral neuropathy is what I would ask your doctor for.
Okay, thank you.
Then I saw a question about the resistance band. How long to hold it, and do you feel a stretch? You're exactly right. Hold it till you feel a stretch, and nice and slow. So I pause at the end and I come back to the middle for the start of the exercise, if you will. Some of this depends on your range of motion right now. Some of this depends on your strength. If I were to use, you know, a black band, maybe I could only stretch that far, versus this blue one, I can stretch a little bit more. If I want to challenge myself, I can hold it here and I can start feeling my muscles shake a little bit as well. So you can modify and change it up a little bit, but you're exactly right, the basics. Go till you feel that stretch, a nice pause, and then come back to the return of that movement.
Lauren, that was my question, but I was wondering though, how long do you hold the bar stretches? You know, when you use the bar, how long do you hold like stretches in general?
Okay, good question.
10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then do you hold it until you just feel the pain or the tightness? Because I've got lymphedema, you know, or do you keep going?
Okay, good question. A little difficult to give you detailed individual stuff because I'm not right there with you, Ruth. But in general, what I would say is when you are stretching, go till you feel a stretch, take a couple of breaths, breathe right to that stretch, breathe through it. And then if you feel comfortable, if you feel like you can do it, push a little bit more, engage. If you feel sharp shooting pain, heck no, back off. If you feel that kind of, oh, that kind of hurts, but it kind of feels good, then you're okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then as far as how long to hold it, I at least start in that 5-second time frame. It's a lot longer when you're counting, you know, and shoot for that 5 to 10 second time frame to at least start. And then you can slowly build from there. Good questions.
Could you demonstrate the snow angel? I'm not exactly sure what the directions mean.
Yes. Okay. So with that one, there's two versions. One, you are laying on your back. You've got your little dowel or something, And I'm not going to lay on my back because it'll be like the kitchen floor, but you know what I mean? So what you're going to do is if I'm stretching my left arm, I'm going to use my right arm to push it in that snow angel movement. So I'm using my left arm, kind of like you're shoveling, like that. Does that make sense? Yep, just like that. Exactly. And then Connie, you can do it against the wall. For snow angel, you would be against the wall, pushing up. Yep. Kind of walking your hand up to help stretch that armpit area. Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one resource that we talk about in our survivorship classes is the Live Strong program. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that. That's through the YMCA. And so it's a national program, but available locally. And that's a program that's specifically for cancer survivors returning to physical exercise. And so look it up in your area. I know that in our area, they are returning in person in the fall. But in the meantime, at least where we're at, they're doing virtual options as well. So that's Live Strong. And I can include that in our follow-up email as well.
Yeah, Kelly, that would be great. Thank you. And again, when I said earlier, it's really important for our survivors to see individuals who know what the heck they're doing and know about cancer, its treatments, and that's an excellent one because those folks have received the additional training to monitor you and to modify things as needed. Yeah, great call out. All right, we've got about 10 minutes here left for some nutrition talk. So the foods that you choose every day are some of the most powerful factors in protecting your health. Research has shown that no single food or diet is a magic bullet for preventing cancer or recurrence. But we know that there are a few general guidelines that seem to be on the positive for us. So in general, nutrition, eating the right kinds of foods before, during, and after cancer treatment can help you feel better. And we know that it helps keeps us healthy and strong. Eating and drinking enough foods and liquids that have those nutrients, vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbs, fat, and water is what our body needs. And it's also important for healing, fighting infection, and having energy, like we were talking about with exercise. So I would encourage everyone to check out the American Institute for Cancer Research. So they have CUP, Continuous Update Project, and it actually analyzes global research on how diet, nutrition, and physical activity affect cancer risk and survival. It's updated quite frequently with the latest and the greatest as far as nutrition and foods and diets, specifically for cancer survivors, cancer prevention, and survival. So a really excellent resource and database there. Google that resource. And I know A Time to Heal also talks about that in our classes. So in general, those recommendations are right there. Be as lean as possible without becoming underweight. Be physically active. Limit the inactivity. Avoid sugary drinks. Eat more variety of vegetables, fruits, legumes, beans, whole grains. Limit consumption of red meat and avoid processed meats as much as possible. If consumed at all, limit alcohol drinks to 1 serving per day for women and 2 servings per day for men. Limit salty foods or processed foods. Do not rely on supplements. New mothers, encourage breastfeeding for up to 6 months and add other liquids and foods after. So that has benefits for mom and baby. For mom, in terms of a cancer risk, it reduces reduces a woman's exposure to estrogen while they are breastfeeding. So it suppresses that, which is kind of interesting. Cancer survivors after treatment follow those recommendations that we talked about earlier and do not smoke or chew tobacco. Let's go into a few of these and a few diet and nutrition things a little bit deeper. So alcohol, why not? Many chemotherapy agents are processed in our liver, and alcohol in general causes liver inflammation, so it could interfere with some of your chemotherapy treatments and how they're processed. And then in addition, research recently has been finding more and more connections and a link between alcohol and some cancers, increasing the risk for developing some cancers. And then also through treatment with chemotherapy, it's affecting our fast growing cells. And one of those areas is the mucosa in our mouth and throat. So it's already being affected. And then if we add an irritant like alcohol, it can create further issues with mouth sores. So supplements, I get a lot of questions about supplements. You know, I saw this infomercial or this came up on my Facebook feed. What do you think about this? It's going to get rid of my neuropathy, for example. I really caution people with taking supplements unless you are recommended by your physician when you have a deficiency, like a vitamin D deficiency, and your doctor may recommend taking a supplement. Otherwise, really try to obtain your nutrients from actual food. Our bodies are designed to absorb and process and break down and actually utilize these nutrients best in actual food form instead of a supplement. So keep that in mind. So organic, is organic better? Should I be eating organic? At this time, there are no studies in humans to show whether organic foods are better than other foods in terms of reducing the risk of cancer, the risk of your cancer coming back, or progression. So what I say is, if it tastes better, if you like it, if you can afford it, go right ahead. If not, again, the research right now does not show organic foods are better than other foods. Sugar, this is a hot topic. I hear a lot, sugar feeds my cancer. Again, currently there are no studies to show that sugar feeds cancer. However, limiting our sugar intake, regardless of the source, will certainly reduce our overall caloric intake, and we're likely replacing those heavy sugary type foods with more nutritious options. So overall, it's probably better for us. The research out there just doesn't say that it feeds cancer necessarily. What about soy? Another hot topic, particularly for our breast cancer survivors. So this one is a little bit mixed right now. There's a great deal of interest in the role of soy in reducing cancer risk. Originally, some research came out that breast cancer survivors or women in general should not be eating soy products. And then they did further research and found that no, that's not true. It's actually helping reduce cancer risk. So right now it is mixed. All right, what about vegetarian and vegan diets? Should I go plant-based? Should I not eat meat? There's, meat from animals, I should clarify. There's currently no direct evidence has been shown that vegetarian diets help reduce the risk of cancer recurrence when compared to diets that contain some meat, but are high in vegetables, fruits, whole grains. So the recommendations here are to have that balance. Limit your red meat, to a couple times a week, and make sure that you're eating your vegetables and fruits and high fiber and a variety of protein sources with that piece. There's a lot of buzz on keto and paleo and all of these other intermittent fasting. There's just a lot of information out there with some of these diets, and some of them tend to have those buzzwords, and they're trendy and they get people kind of on board. The difficulty with food and nutrition studies is they can never be empirically studied because of all of the confounding variables that are in our life, what we're exposed to, how our bodies digest, how much activity we're doing during the day, how much you're consuming. There's just so many. And then the food itself. The apple that someone has in Wisconsin is grown in an entirely different environment than when I go to the grocery store as well. So I know it's a lot and it's overwhelming, and it can be confusing at times because you feel like day one, eat eggs, day two, don't eat eggs, they cause high cholesterol. It's just like, what do I do? So my best advice is, one, eat the foods that make you feel good. We tend to feel better when we're eating fruits, vegetables, high protein, meats, things like that. So limit your sugary, your carbs. Yes, Karen, exactly. Moderation and balance. You got it, girl. Exactly. You're exactly right. But don't deny yourself that ice cream or birthday cake or whatever it is that you enjoy. I mean, this is life, man. Have some fun, enjoy, right? But we also, dark chocolate, whatever your vice is, but be mindful of it. That's my biggest takeaway with some of this research is, okay, dark chocolate, great example. Take that piece of dark chocolate, unwrap it slowly, look at it, smell it, savor it, taste it slowly. And it's so much more satisfying than gobbling up the entire bag. And then you feel like crap, one, sugar high, and then you're feeling like, guilty, and you're mad at yourself because you ate that bag, then it just keeps spiraling, right? So slow down and truly enjoy some of those high calorie or high sugary foods and desserts and things. Sometimes when we crave sweets, try fruit instead and see if that will satisfy that sweet tooth. Some strawberries or an apple, things like that. It's baby steps. It's baby steps with all of this stuff. Give yourself some grace. I would also caution everyone on where you get your nutrition information from. If it's a Newsweek article, maybe scrutinize it a little bit more versus the American Institute for Cancer Research, for example. Also keep in mind that when you go to, let's say you go to a gym or something, and the certified personal trainer says, well, I can put you on a food plan or a nutrition plan. Okay, I'm gonna get on my soapbox one more time. They are not licensed to do that. So they are giving you the information that I'm giving you. What I am licensed to do is take information that has been researched and help you interpret it. That's what I can do. The only person that can prescribe a nutrition plan is a licensed medical nutrition therapist or a registered dietitian, depending on what state you live in. They call them different things. Here in Nebraska, it's an LMNT, but it might be a registered dietitian in your state. So those folks, and I learned this when I was taking some nutrition courses. I'm like, oh, holy crap, I could get in big trouble for doing that. Those are the only folks that can prescribe you a diet for your medical purposes. Our certified personal trainers, our Weight Watchers persons, they are simply disseminating the research and the information. So be just mindful of that out there as well. So, little tip on that one.
Lauren, do you know anything about vinegar intake, whether that is harmful or not?
There's some research, again, it's one of those things that apple cider vinegar is like the best thing on earth and it cures everything. I'm just a little leery of those kind of claims, whereas it's kind of like the snake oil stuff back in the 1800s when the guy would travel around and sell these potions, you know. If you try it, talk to your doctor, of course, because if you have some mucosa issues or esophageal issues, it could irritate your skin. Because vinegar, we use it to clean, right? It's breaking down stuff and it's getting rid of bacteria. So it might have to be diluted. Even might be a certain ratio of water to vinegar that you might need. It might be a certain vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is the one that I've seen out there quite a bit. So just be leery of that if it has those kind of claims. This is going to cure your cancer. Oh, a little scary if it says that. But talk to your doctor for sure. Talk to a registered dietitian, because some people take it and they feel great. They love it and it's not harming them. Another thing that I would say with all of this stuff is we talked about keeping a calendar, a journal earlier. If you did start something like that, keep track of it, because otherwise, how are you going to know how your body's feeling with it as well? Day one, listen in, write down some notes, how you're feeling. Don't look at it and then check it in 4 to 6 weeks or so.
Thank you, Lauren. This has all been really helpful. We do have a few questions in the chat box that I'll get to. We're going to be closing up in about 5 minutes or so, just to give you guys a timeline. If you need to hop off, that's okay. Like I said earlier, we will have a recording. So if you do have to hop off, you can always go back and look at the questions as well. But one of the comments that we received was actually submitted before you were talking about the nutritionist, but we just had a comment that was submitted in the chat box saying that during treatment they gained weight, but that they asked their oncologist for a nutrition specialist referral, and that person helped them out a lot. So that was just a positive comment in regards to what you were referencing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions that we have, it says, if you're eating meats from animals that are grass-fed, no GMOs, and no nitrates, are these meats better to eat?
Ooh, good question. So again, there's not necessarily concrete research that would say this kind of meat or this source of meat is better than another one. So it all boils down to, how do you feel? Can you afford that? Is that a priority for you? Some individuals want to know that their animals are treated more humanely. So that all factors into it too. There's not research exclusively to say grass-fed is superior to corn-fed beef. You know, here in Nebraska, we've got a lot of the corn-fed beef, right? Which tastes very good. So what we do know is the red meat in general, the recommendations are 2 to 3 times a week, have that serving about the size of your fist. We do know that piece of it, not necessarily the source that it comes from.
The only other question that we had in the chat box was on lymphedema. And so I'm going to go ahead and close up, and then we can end the recording, and then we can perhaps stay on and ask that question if that's okay with you, Lauren. Before we close up on the topic of nutrition and exercise, I just wanted to make sure there weren't any final questions that you guys had. If you want to come off mute or submit anything in the chat box, please do so right now. It doesn't sound like it. So I'll just give a couple closing announcements. Just so you guys know, we have these events every single month. And so if you have topics that you'd like to discuss, please reach out to me. We want these to be what you guys want. And so feel free to send me an email, put something in the chat box. We always will take suggestions on what is of interest for you guys. And then the only other announcement that I have is that we do have survivorship one-on-one classes beginning each month. So our next class starts June 1st. If you're interested, please feel free to reach out to us. You can check out our website, but that's kind of what's happening right now. I'm going to end the recording and just thank you guys all for coming. If you're interested in hanging on at the end, you can please do so, but I'm going to end the recording at this time.